I swear on the 7 moons of Paraxes, if one more person asks me why we lost the war against the humans, I will personally rip their sensory appendages off and feed them to a Vortak beast," growled Commander Tavik as he slammed his drinking vessel onto the table. The cantina fell silent. Even the ambient music paused, as if the sound system itself feared the commander's wrath. Tavik's facial ridges flushed a deep purple, a clear warning sign to anyone familiar with Drekarian physiology. I should have known better than to sit near the infamous commander, but curiosity had gotten the better of me. Everyone knew Tavik had led the final defensive against the humans before our surrender. Everyone knew he had lost spectacularly, and everyone wanted to know why. The silence stretched uncomfortably until the bartender, an old Qualarian named Jex, with 6 arms and what appeared to be perpetual boredom etched into his face, resumed wiping glasses. "You say that every night, Commander, yet you keep coming back. Almost like you want someone to ask." Tavik's eyes narrowed to slits. "Watch yourself, Jex." "6 arms make me excellent at watching myself," Jex replied with a shrug. "Another drink?" I couldn't help but smile. Jex had been serving drinks on this station since before the war. Some said he'd been here since before the station was even built, that they'd constructed the place around him. He feared no one, not even a disgraced Drekarian commander. Tavik grunted what passed for approval, and Jex poured another glass of luminescent blue liquid that smelled like engine coolant and probably tasted worse. Against my better judgment, I spoke up. "I'm just a historian, Commander, not looking for trouble, but there are inconsistencies in the official record." "A historian?" Tavik's laugh was harsh, like metal scraping against metal. "Come to document the great failure, have you?" "I prefer to think of it as documenting the truth. The archives say we never even saw their fleet. That can't be right." The commander stared into his drink for so long. I thought he might have fallen asleep with his eyes open. Then he looked up, and I saw something unexpected in his gaze. Not anger, not shame, just weariness. "Sit," he said, motioning to the chair across from him. "You want the truth? Fine, but you won't believe it. No one does." I sat cautiously, placing my recording device on the table. "May I?" Tavik waved dismissively. "Whatever, it won't matter. The High Council will censor it anyway." I activated the recorder and identified myself. Historical Archive Entry 7129B. Interview subject: Commander Tavik Rendor, former fleet commander of the Drekarian 7th Assault Division. "Former," Tavik muttered. "How quickly they strip away your accomplishments when you fail them once." "For the record, Commander, could you describe the events leading up to the final confrontation with the human forces?" Tavik drained his glass and signaled Jex for another. "You know what our mistake was? We thought we understood them. We'd studied their broadcasts, their literature, their history. We knew they were violent, fractious, and technologically inferior. The High Council determined they would be an easy conquest, but they weren't. No, they weren't." Tavik accepted the fresh drink from Jex. "We sent probes first. Standard procedure. Mapped their system, assessed their defenses. They had rudimentary satellites, a handful of space stations, primitive weaponry. Their ships couldn't even leave their own solar system. So what happened?" "Patience, historian." "I'm getting there." Tavik's ridges pulsed with irritation. "We followed protocol. Positioned our fleet at the edge of their system. 117 warships, the pride of the Drekarian Empire. We sent the formal declaration of war, as required by the Galactic Accords. And they responded." Tavik's laugh was bitter. "Oh yes, within their solar hour we received a transmission from their unified government. A single human female looking utterly unimpressed. Do you know what she said?" I shook my head. "She said, 'We acknowledge receipt of your declaration. Please stand by for our response.' That was it. Then silence." Jex, who had drifted closer to listen, snorted. "Sounds ominous." We thought it was a bluff, Tavik continued. Our intelligence indicated they had no unified world government. They were divided into nation-states, constantly bickering among themselves. Yet here was a single representative speaking for all of them. It was concerning. What did you do next? We waited. Protocol dictated we give them 12 solar cycles to surrender formally. During that time, we monitored their communications, watched for any signs of mobilization. There was nothing. Their news broadcasts continued discussing trivial matters. Their militaries remained in their bases. Their ships stayed in orbit or on the ground. They didn't prepare at all. Tavik's expression darkened. That should have been our first warning. After 3 cycles, Grand Admiral Zol grew impatient. He ordered a demonstration of force. We targeted one of their uninhabited moons, fired a single planet cracker missile. The explosion was visible from their planet's surface, a clear message of our capabilities. And their response? Another transmission. Same human female. She said, "We have received your demonstration. Our response remains in preparation. Please continue to stand by." Then more silence. I frowned. Checking my recorder was still functioning. That doesn't make sense. They should have been terrified. Exactly. Tavik slammed his fist on the table, causing nearby patrons to jump. Any rational species would have at least shown signs of panic. Evacuation of major cities, movement of military assets, desperate pleas for mercy. The humans did nothing. They continued their lives as if we weren't there. Perhaps they didn't believe you were a real threat. We destroyed one of their moons. They couldn't ignore that. Tavik's ridges were now pulsing rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. By the 7th cycle, Grand Admiral Zol had enough. He ordered a strike on one of their military installations, an island base in their largest ocean. We obliterated it completely. Casualties? None. That was the strangest part. When our targeting system scanned the base before firing, it registered no life forms. The base appeared fully operational, lights on, equipment running but completely deserted. I leaned forward, intrigued. They evacuated in advance. How? Your sensors would have detected mass movement. Precisely the question Zol asked. He became unsettled, ordered scans of other military installations. All showed the same pattern, operational but empty. No personnel, anywhere. A chill ran down my spine, causing my dorsal quills to stiffen. Where had they gone? Tavik stared at me, his eyes haunted. That's what terrified us. We had no idea. Our sensors showed billions of humans going about their daily lives on the planet, working, eating, sleeping, but not a single soldier, sailor, or pilot at their posts. It was as if their entire military had simply vanished. What about their orbital assets? Space stations, satellites? Still there, still functioning. But the crew quarters scanned empty. Automated systems running everything. Jex, who had abandoned any pretense of not listening, whistled through his breathing slits. Sounds like they pulled a vanishing act worthy of the legendary Phantom Nebula heist. Tavik shot him a look that would have withered a lesser being. This isn't one of your fanciful tales, Qualaria. Just saying, Jex replied, unperturbed. Sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one you can't see. Grand Admiral Zol reached the same conclusion. Tavik continued reluctantly. He ordered the fleet to pull back to defensive positions, increased shield output to maximum, deployed our sensor drones in a wider perimeter. Still nothing. No sign of any human military vessels approaching. So what did you do? What could we do? Our orders were to subjugate the planet. After 10 cycles with no response from the humans beyond their cryptic "please stand by" messages, Zol decided to proceed with the invasion. I blinked in surprise. You sent ground forces without neutralizing their military first? Their military was gone. Vanished. What were we supposed to neutralize? Tavik's voice rose in frustration. Zol dispatched the first wave. 30,000 troops in landing craft. targeted for their less populated areas, establish beachheads, then expand outward. And, I prompted when Tavik fell silent, staring into his drink. The landing craft never arrived. His voice had dropped to nearly a whisper. All 30 ships carrying 1,000 troops each disappeared from our sensors approximately 100,000 kilometers above the planet's surface. Disappeared? How is that possible? No debris, no distress signals, no energy signatures indicating weapons fire. One moment they were there, the next, gone, as if they'd never existed. The cantina had grown quieter, more patrons drifting close enough to eavesdrop. I was too engrossed to care about our audience. What did Grand Admiral Zol do? Tavik's laugh was hollow. What any commanding officer would do when faced with an invisible enemy. He panicked, ordered a full retreat. But it was too late. Too late for what? That's when it started. The malfunctions. Minor at first, environmental systems fluctuating, navigation computers showing discrepancies, communication delays between ships. Nothing critical, just annoying. Chex nodded sagely. Death by 1,000 cuts. Exactly, Tavik agreed, seemingly forgetting his earlier animosity toward the bartender. Engineering couldn't explain it. No virus in our systems, no signs of tampering. But the problems kept escalating. Ships began reporting power surges, weapons systems locking up, shield generators overheating. Sabotage, I suggested. That was our assumption. But how? We detected no boarding parties, no unauthorized access to our systems. Zol ordered a complete shutdown and restart of all non-essential systems fleet-wide. The procedure should have cleared any intrusions. Did it work? For about 6 hours. Then the real chaos began. Tavik's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his drink. The Intrepid, our forward scout vessel, reported multiple hull breaches. No explosions, no impacts. The hull simply failed. Over 800 crew members lost to space before they could seal the compartments. My blood ran cold. Material failure? Could it have been a manufacturing defect? That's what we told ourselves. Until it happened to the Valiant. Then the Conqueror. Then the Relentless. Always the same pattern. Hull integrity suddenly compromising for no apparent reason. Did you ever see the human fleet? Any sign of their vessels? Tavik's eyes met mine, and I saw genuine fear in them. Never. Not once. Our sensors never detected a single human warship. We were fighting ghosts, perhaps some kind of long-range weapon? Something beyond our technological understanding? We considered every possibility, deployed countermeasures against all known weapon types and several theoretical ones. Nothing helped. Tavik drained his glass again. By the 15th cycle, we'd lost 23 ships, not to explosions or conventional attacks. They just stopped functioning. Life support failed. Engines died. Crews stranded in metal coffins. And still no communication from the humans beyond their standby messages. Oh, they communicated. Tavik's expression darkened. On the 16th cycle, as we were preparing to make an emergency jump out of the system, every screen on every remaining ship in our fleet displayed the same message. What did it say? Your declaration of war has been processed. Our response follows. Tavik's voice had dropped to a whisper. That's when we lost gravity control fleet-wide. Simultaneously across 94 warships. Do you have any idea what happens when artificial gravity fails suddenly on a military vessel during combat readiness? I winced. Chaos. Carnage. Tavik corrected. Equipment not bolted down becomes deadly projectiles. Crew members slam into walls, ceilings, liquid storage ruptures. And that was just the beginning. What happened next? Life support began cycling randomly. Freezing cold to burning hot, oxygen levels fluctuating, lighting systems failing, and still we saw no human ships, no weapon signatures, nothing to fight against. Jex had stopped pretending to work, openly listening now. They turned your own ships against you. Tavik nodded grimly. By the 18th cycle, we'd lost 40% of our fleet, not destroyed. Just dead in space. Grand Admiral Zol gathered the remaining command staff. We had to face the truth. We were defeated by an enemy we couldn't see, couldn't understand, and couldn't fight. So you surrendered, I stated. Zol sent the surrender communication personally. Within minutes, all the malfunctions throughout the fleet stopped. Just like that, systems returned to normal, ships regained functionality. It was as if nothing had happened, and the humans, another transmission, the same female. She said, "Surrender accepted. Please maintain your current position. Representatives will arrive shortly to discuss terms." Did they finally reveal their fleet? Tavik's expression was haunted. A single ship appeared on our sensors, approaching from behind Luna, their smaller moor. One ship, about 1/4 the size of our smallest frigate. I blinked in confusion. That can't be right. One ship couldn't have caused all that damage. That's what Zol said. The human vessel docked with his command ship. 3 humans boarded, unarmed, wearing what appeared to be standard business attire, not military uniforms. What did they say? They presented terms of surrender, withdrawal of all Drekarian forces from their system, non-aggression pact, trade restrictions, standard terms, nothing punitive or unreasonable. But how did they do it? How did they defeat your fleet? Tavik leaned forward, lowering his voice. Zol asked them the same question. The lead human, an older male with white facial hair, just smiled and said, "Commander, we never attacked your fleet. You did that yourselves." What did he mean? He explained that when we sent our initial probes, they contained comprehensive data about our technology, our systems architecture, our communication protocols, standard reconnaissance programming. The humans captured one intact, studied it, and found what they called elegant vulnerabilities. Jex whistled again. They reverse-engineered your entire technological base from a single probe. Apparently, Tavik said bitterly. The humans said they hadn't fired a single shot. They simply sent back specialized data packets disguised as routine system updates. Our ships accepted them as legitimate because they carried all the proper authentication codes. From our own probe, I sat back, stunned. So the vanished military, a trick. They knew we were monitoring their communications, so they created a false narrative. Their soldiers were exactly where they'd always been. They just made sure any communications about military movements were conducted through channels we couldn't access. And the empty bases? Sensor ghosts. They found a way to fool our scanning technology into reporting no life signs where there actually were plenty. Their military never moved. They just became invisible to us. The disappeared landing craft, guidance systems reprogrammed remotely. The ships diverted to unpopulated areas, landed safely. The troops were captured without a single casualty on either side. I shook my head in disbelief. This is unprecedented. That's why no one believes me, Tavik said, gesturing around the cantina. How could a technologically inferior species defeat the mighty Drekarian Empire without firing a shot, without even showing their fleet? But they did have ships, didn't they? They must have had some military capability. Tavik's laugh was hollow. Oh yes. After the surrender was formalized, they showed us, opened their sensor screens to us. Hundreds of small vessels hidden in plain sight, using our own sensor blind spots against us. They'd been there the whole time, watching, waiting. But they never attacked, never needed to. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. After all this time, Tavik's eyes met mine, suddenly intense. Because the High Council refuses to acknowledge the truth. They have buried the real story, claimed it was conventional warfare, that we were simply outmatched. They have refused to learn the real lesson, which is, That sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the biggest guns or the most ships. Tavik leaned forward. It's the one who turns your own strength into your weakness. The humans never needed to destroy our fleet. They just needed us to believe they could. Jex nodded thoughtfully. Fear is the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. Not fear, Tavik corrected. Arrogance. Our arrogance. We were so convinced of our superiority that we couldn't imagine being defeated by what we perceived as a lesser species. I was about to respond when the cantina door slid open. 3 figures entered, silhouetted against the bright corridor light. As they stepped inside, I recognized the distinctive uniforms of the Historical Accuracy Bureau. My heart sank. Looks like your story's about to be classified, historian, Jex muttered, moving away quickly. The lead agent, a stern-faced Drekarian with the red facial ridges of high government rank, approached our table. Professor Tanak Vos, your presence is required at Central Command. The recording device, please. I hesitated, looking at Tavik. He nodded slightly. This interview isn't finished, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm afraid it is, the agent replied, holding out his hand for my recorder. As I reluctantly surrendered the device, Tavik leaned close and whispered, "Find Admiral Sorya. She was there too. She knows the truth." Admiral Sorya? But the records say she died during the conflict. Tavik's smile was grim. Exactly. The records say many things, historian. Few of them true. The agent gripped my arm. Come with us, Professor. Now. As they led me toward the door, I glanced back at Tavik. He raised his glass in a mock salute, but his eyes conveyed a clear message. This story wasn't over, and neither was humanity's threat to our empire. Because the most terrifying enemy isn't the one you can see. It's the one that makes you defeat yourself. The detention cell at Central Command was exactly as uninspiring as I'd expected. Gray walls, a hard bench, and a force field that hummed with just enough menace to discourage any thoughts of escape. They'd confiscated my recorder, my credentials, and even my pocket chronometer. Apparently, telling time was now considered dangerous. Honestly, the Historical Accuracy Bureau should rename itself to the Historical Fiction Department. I muttered to myself, tracing patterns on the condensation forming on the cold metal wall. At least then they'd be honest about their purpose. The force field shimmered, then deactivated. A female Drekarian officer stepped through, her uniform bearing the green and gold insignia of internal intelligence. Not quite as bad as security forces, but certainly not my first choice for a social visit. Professor Tanak Vos, she said, consulting a datapad. Historian specializing in interspecies conflicts, currently researching the human Drekarian War. Found interviewing a disgraced commander in a disreputable establishment on the fringes of regulated space. You make it sound so nefarious, I replied, trying for casual but achieving something closer to nervous. I was conducting an oral history interview. Standard procedure for historical documentation. She looked up from her pad, one eyebrow ridge raised. Standard procedure includes seeking classified information about military operations. History isn't classified, officer. Lieutenant Mira Vex. She sat opposite me, setting her datapad aside. And history, Professor Vos, is precisely what gets classified, especially when it contradicts the official narrative. I studied her more carefully. Lieutenant Vex appeared younger than most officers of her rank, her facial ridges still vibrant with the deep blue of youth. But her eyes held the weariness of someone who had seen far more than her years suggested. So what happens now? I asked. Am I to be charged with something? Curiosity? Academic integrity? Her mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. Neither. In fact, you are free to go. I blinked in surprise. Just like that? Just like that. She reactivated her datapad. Your credentials and personal effects will be returned. Your recording device, however, had an unfortunate malfunction. All data was corrupted beyond recovery. How convenient, I said, not bothering to hide my bitterness. Isn't it? Lieutenant Vex's tone remained neutral, but something in her expression shifted. She glanced toward the surveillance node in the corner of the ceiling, then back to me. A word of advice, Professor. The Historical Accuracy Bureau takes its mandate very seriously. They don't appreciate academics digging into sensitive matters. The truth about how humans defeated our fleet is a sensitive matter. The truth, she said carefully, is whatever the High Council says it is. Questioning that truth can be hazardous to one's career, and sometimes to one's continued respiration. I stood as the force field deactivated fully. Thank you for the warning, Lieutenant. But I became a historian to document what actually happened, not what someone wishes had happened. A noble sentiment. She handed me a small envelope. Your belongings, all accounted for. I opened it, confirming my credentials and chronometer were there. As I put them away, I noticed a small data chip that hadn't been mine, tucked into the seam of the envelope. I carefully kept my expression neutral. Thank you for your thoroughness, Lieutenant. She nodded once. Good day, Professor. I suggest finding less controversial subjects for your research. The mating habits of Jovian gas whales, perhaps. Much less likely to result in detention. As I exited Central Command, my mind raced. The data chip burned in my pocket like a miniature sun. What had Lieutenant Vex given me? And why? I needed somewhere private to view it, somewhere the Bureau wouldn't immediately look. The answer came as I passed a public transport terminal, the university archives. As a tenured professor, I had access to private research booths that were theoretically shielded from surveillance. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best option available. 3 hours later, sequestered in the smallest and most outdated research booth in the archive's basement, I inserted the data chip into the reader. The security protocols were impressive multiple encryption layers that required specific timing between inputs. Had I not been paying careful attention, I would have triggered the failsafe that would have wiped the chip clean. Finally, the data decrypted. A single file appeared on the screen, labeled simply Sorya. My heart raced as I opened it. Coordinates, a communication frequency, and a single line of text. She awaits the seeker of truth. Finding transportation to the coordinates proved challenging. They pointed to a small asteroid mining outpost in the Corellian Belt, a region notorious for its lawlessness and distance from established Drekarian territories. After depleting most of my academic stipend, I secured passage on a cargo hauler whose captain asked no questions beyond whether my payment would clear. The journey took 8 miserable days in a cabin barely large enough to lie down in, with recycled air that tasted like it had been breathed by at least a dozen different species before reaching my lungs. When we finally docked at outpost K-17, I nearly wept with relief. K-17 made the cantina where I'd met Tavik look like a luxury resort, a hodgepodge of interconnected modules, patched and repatched over decades. It clung to its asteroid like a parasitic growth. The artificial gravity fluctuated unpredictably, making walking a constant challenge. The air smelled of unwashed bodies, industrial lubricant, and what I sincerely hoped was not decomposition. Following Lieutenant Vex's instructions, I made my way to a communications booth in what passed for the outpost's commercial district. I paid the exorbitant fee to the booth operator, a species I couldn't identify beneath their environmental suit, and input the frequency. The screen remained blank for so long, I thought the system had malfunctioned. Then a voice spoke, distorted by heavy encryption. Identify yourself and your purpose. Professor Tanik Voss, historian. I seek Admiral Sorya regarding the human-Drekarian war. Another long pause. Compartment 42B, Level 3. Come alone. You have 1 hour. The screen went dark. Finding 42B proved nearly as challenging as reaching K-17 in the first place. The outpost's layout defied logic, with corridors that doubled back on themselves, and level markers that appeared to have been applied by someone with a tenuous grasp of numerical sequence. When I finally located the right compartment, I hesitated. What if this was a trap? What if the Bureau had followed me? What if Admiral Sorya, presumed dead for 5 years, wanted to ensure she stayed that way by eliminating potential witnesses? Before I could decide whether to proceed or flee, the door slid open. Historians. The voice was female, raspy with age or injury, always overthinking everything. Come inside before you attract attention. I stepped through the doorway into a Spartan living space. Utilitarian furniture, minimal personal effects, multiple security screens monitoring the corridor outside, and sitting in a hover chair by the single viewport, a Drekarian female whose face I'd seen countless times in military archives. Admiral Sorya looked both exactly as I expected and nothing like her official portraits. Her once impressive height was diminished by age and whatever injury had confined her to the hover chair. Her facial ridges had faded to the pale lavender of extreme age or stress, but her eyes remained sharp, assessing me with military precision. "So," she said, gesturing to the room's only other chair, "Tavik sent you." I sat, trying to hide my awe. "You know about that." "I know everything that happens regarding the war. It's my job to know." She manipulated controls on her chair, bringing up a holographic display. "Your detention, your release." The data chip Lieutenant Vex provided. "My people have been watching you since you first approached Tavik." "Your people?" I echoed, confused. "I thought you were dead." The official record," she interrupted, "is a collection of convenient lies. I'm officially dead because being officially alive would be inconvenient for too many powerful people. Because you know what really happened with the humans." Admiral Sorya's laugh was harsh. "I don't just know what happened, Professor. I predicted it, warned against it. And when no one listened, I documented everything." She manipulated her controls again, and the holographic display expanded, filling the center of the room with data, images, and video recordings. "The complete, unaltered record of the human Drekarian war," she said. "Every communication, every sensor log, every after-action report. The truth the High Council has worked so diligently to bury." I stared at the wealth of information surrounding me. "Why show me this? Why now?" "Because the humans are coming." My blood went cold. "Coming?" "But the peace treaty we signed after they humiliated our fleet. The one where we promised never to enter their space again." "That peace treaty." Her voice dripped sarcasm. "Yes, they have honored it perfectly. We are the ones who haven't." "What do you mean?" Admiral Sorya sighed heavily. 3 months ago, High Command authorized a covert reconnaissance mission into human space. They believed enough time had passed, that the humans would have grown complacent. They sent our most advanced stealth vessel, the Phantom, to gather intelligence on human military capabilities. And the Phantom never returned. No distress signal, no debris field, nothing. Her eyes met mine, just like our landing craft 5 years ago. I felt a chill run down my spine. "They detected it." "Of course they detected it," Sorya snapped. "Did we learn nothing from our first encounter? The humans let us believe our technology was superior, that they had just gotten lucky by capturing one of our probes. The truth is far more disturbing." She manipulated her controls again, bringing up new data. 2 weeks after the Phantom disappeared, we intercepted this. A transmission appeared in the holographic display. A simple text message, addressed to the High Council. "Violation of treaty terms noted. Second violation will result in proportional response. There will not be a third warning." They knew exactly who sent the Phantom, Sorya continued. Exactly who authorized the mission, and exactly how to ensure their message reached precisely those individuals. But how? Our encryption is meaningless to them. Sorya's expression was grim. "That's what the High Council refuses to accept. The humans aren't just another species we encountered during expansion. They are something different. Different how? Admiral Sorya manipulated her chair, moving closer to me. What do you know about human history, Professor? The standard data package. Relatively young spacefaring species, evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme climate variations. History marked by internal conflicts. Technological development accelerated dramatically in their last 2 centuries. Yes, their technological development. Sorya nodded. Did you ever wonder why it accelerated so rapidly? How they went from primitive combustion engines to rudimentary space travel in less than a century? I frowned. Evolutionary pressure, necessity, adaptation, she corrected. The humans possess an ability unlike any species we have encountered. They don't just develop technology. They absorb it, integrate it, improve upon it, and they do it at a pace that defies conventional understanding. She brought up new data, timelines of human technological development. Look at the pattern. Every major leap in their capabilities followed contact with another spacefaring race. Encounters most of them don't even remember or have mythologized in their culture. You are suggesting they have been visited before? Before official first contact? I'm not suggesting, I'm stating it as fact. Sorya's voice was firm. The Arcosians, the Meridian Collective, the Voth hegemony, all made the same mistake we did. They underestimated the humans' ability to learn, to adapt, to overcome. But those civilizations are gone. Sorya finished for me, or reduced to shadows of their former selves, not through direct conflict, but through the slow, inexorable pressure of human expansion. I sat back, trying to process this information. So when we sent our probes, we handed them everything they needed to neutralize our advantage. Sorya nodded. But that's not what terrifies me, Professor. What terrifies me is what they didn't do. What do you mean? They could have destroyed our fleet. Completely. Permanently. Their message to us after the Phantom incursion proves they have maintained surveillance of our territory. They know our capabilities, our movements, our vulnerabilities, yet they chose merely to incapacitate our ships, to accept our surrender, to establish boundaries. Mercy, I suggested. Admiral Sorya's laugh was bitter. No. Strategy. The humans think long-term in ways our military planners can't comprehend. They didn't want to destroy us. They wanted to use us. Use us for what? As a buffer, a shield. Sorya manipulated her controls again, bringing up a galactic map. Look at our position relative to human space. What do you see? I studied the map. The Drekarian Empire occupied a significant region of space, with human territory nestled against one border. Beyond our other borders lay several other major powers: the Savvy Dominion, the Tulgari Axis, the Ferran Sovereignty. We are between humans and several potentially hostile powers, I noted. Precisely. By leaving our empire intact but humbled, they created a protective zone around their territory. We are now too cautious to threaten them again, but still strong enough to make others think twice about moving through our space to reach them. The implications were staggering. You are saying they manipulated galactic politics by specifically not destroying us? That's exactly what I'm saying. Sorya's eyes blazed with a mixture of admiration and fear. The humans didn't just defeat our fleet, Professor. They positioned us exactly where they wanted us in the greater game. But why show me this? Why now? Tashia's expression grew even more grave. Because the High Council is planning something monumentally stupid. Operation Retribution. A full-scale assault on human space currently in development. They believe they have accounted for the tactics the humans used last time. They are convinced we can overwhelm them with sheer numbers and new technology. My heart sank. And you disagree? I know it's suicide, she said flatly. Not just for the fleet, but potentially for our entire species. The humans showed restraint last time. I don't believe they will again. So what do you want me to do? I'm just a historian. Admiral Sorya smiled for the first time since I'd entered her compartment. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Exactly. You are a historian. Your job is to document the past to inform the future. I'm giving you the means to do exactly that. She removed a data core from her chair's console and handed it to me. Everything I have shown you, plus analysis, projections, and communication protocols. Take this to Academic Central on the homeworld. Find Professor Renix at the Military Historical Institute. She has contacts in the moderate faction of the Council. People who might listen. I took the data core with trembling hands. This is treason. This is survival, Sorya corrected sharply. The High Council's pride will get us all killed. The humans tried to establish peaceful coexistence. We are the ones who can't accept our place in the new order. And if I refuse, then enjoy watching our civilization burn from whatever hiding place you find. She turned her chair back toward the viewport. You have approximately 3 standard months before Operation Retribution moves to active status. Make your decision accordingly. As I rose to leave, a final question occurred to me. Admiral, how did you survive? The records say your ship was destroyed in the initial engagement. Sorya was silent for a long moment, still facing the viewport. I was on the command deck when our systems failed. Explosive decompression. My entire bridge crew died instantly. But you survived. She turned her chair slowly, and for the first time I noticed the unnatural stillness of her lower body. The humans found me, floating in space, nearly dead. They recovered me. I stared in shock. The humans saved you. Their medical technology is advanced, far beyond our understanding. Her hand moved unconsciously to her chest, where her hearts would be. They rebuilt what could be saved, replaced what couldn't. Why would they do that? I asked them the same question. Their medical officer, a female named Dr. Patel, told me, because we could, because it was right, and because someone needs to tell your people the truth. Admiral Sorya's gaze intensified. That's what you don't understand about humans, Professor, what none of us understood. They are not just technologically adaptable. They are morally complex in ways we struggle to comprehend. They can be utterly ruthless and surprisingly compassionate, often in the same moment. And that makes them dangerous. No, she corrected. That makes them terrifying, because we can't predict them. We can't model their behavior using our own psychological frameworks. When a Drekarian or a Kazavi or a Tulgari achieves dominance, the pattern of behavior is consistent. Expansion, subjugation, resource extraction. And humans? They established their dominance over us 5 years ago, and then they simply went home. They demanded no territory, no resources, no ongoing tribute, just that we leave them alone. She shook her head in clear bewilderment. What kind of conqueror does that? One that doesn't need what we have, I suggested. Or one that's playing a game so long-term we can't even see the board. Sorya countered. Either way, provoking them again would be catastrophic. As I tucked the data core into my secure pocket, a thought occurred to me. Tavik said the humans turned our own technology against us, that they never attacked directly. That's essentially correct. Could we do the same to them, use their own systems against them? Admiral Sorya's laugh was genuine this time, though tinged with bitterness. We tried. During the conflict, our best cyber warfare specialists attempted to penetrate their networks. Do you know what they found? I shook my head. Nothing recognizable. Their computing architecture is alien, for lack of a better term. Not just advanced, but fundamentally different. Our experts described it as trying to read a book where the letters keep rearranging themselves. Adaptive security, I murmured. Beyond anything we can comprehend, Sorya confirmed. We couldn't even maintain access to their systems long enough to understand their basic structure, let alone exploit it. The implications were staggering. An enemy we couldn't fight conventionally, couldn't subvert digitally, couldn't predict psychologically. How do we survive them? I asked quietly. By accepting reality, Sorya replied simply. The humans don't want us destroyed. They have made that clear. They want us contained, predictable, and most importantly, far from their borders. Give them that, and they will leave us alone. And if the High Council proceeds with Operation Retribution? The Admiral's expression darkened. Then our empire joins the list of civilizations that underestimated humanity. A footnote in someone else's history texts. I left Admiral Sorya's compartment with the data core feeling like I carried the fate of our species in my pocket. The journey back to academic space was tense. Every passing security scan a potential disaster. But Lieutenant Vex's encryption held, and the core remained undetected. Professor Renix proved exactly as Sorya had described, cautious but concerned, with connections to council members who hadn't completely lost their minds to revenge fantasies. The data spread through secure channels, first as whispers, then as serious policy discussions. 2 weeks before Operation Retribution was scheduled to launch, the High Council voted to cancel it. The official reason cited strategic reconsideration of resource allocation. The unofficial reason was far simpler: fear. Not all council members were convinced, of course. Hardliners protested. Military leaders whose careers had been built on Drekarian superiority balked, and weapons manufacturers whose profits depended on continued conflict lobbied aggressively. But the evidence was too compelling, the risk too great. For once, caution prevailed over pride. 3 days after the vote, a message arrived at every major communication hub in Drekarian space simultaneously. No one could determine its origin or how it bypassed our security. It contained just 3 words. Decision noted. Acknowledged. The humans had been watching the whole time. I returned to my position at the university, my reputation somewhat tarnished by my unconventional research methods, but my career intact. The official history of the Human-Drekarian War remained unchanged, but a new appendix appeared in military academies' tactical manuals: asymmetric technological response, case study in defensive adaptation. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was a start. 6 months later, as I was preparing a lecture on interspecies diplomatic failures, I received a small package. No sender information, no tracking data. Inside was a data chip and a handwritten note, actual paper, a rarity in our digital age, with a message in crude but legible Drekarian script. History is written by the survivors. Make sure your people survive to write theirs. Dr. A. Patel, Human Medical Corps. The data chip contained detailed information about a fatal flaw in our newest flagship's propulsion system. A flaw our engineers hadn't yet discovered. Attached was a suggested correction that our technical specialists later confirmed would work perfectly. I sat in my office for a long time after reading it, staring out at the stars visible through my viewport. Somewhere out there, the humans were watching, waiting, perhaps hoping we'd learn the lesson they'd tried to teach us. The enemy never saw our fleets, only their own collapse. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a planet-killer missile or a massive warship. Sometimes it's simply understanding your opponent better than they understand themselves. And by that measure, humanity might be the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known. Not because they conquered us, but because they chose not to.